The very wrinkled this morning, Matthew Dickerson is with us right now for our Wednesday morning. We're a bit late actually, it's 29 to 10. Here we go.
It's time now for the latest news on what's hot and what's not in the world of technology with Matthew Dickerson on Tech Talk. Here on TCFM 88.9.
How's your complexion, Matthew?
Look, I'm not sure. I think I need someone external to tell me. Thank you very much for telling me, Richard.
That's all right. Because if you're concerned about your complexion, how about a smart mirror?
But they do chuck the word smart in front of so many different things. They might even say smart radio broadcaster. Who knows?
No, they'll never say that. Forget that one.
This is one that I actually thought was quite clever. A smart mirror. And you think, well, what can a mirror do for you? A mirror just reflects back what they're seeing and that's it. But this smart mirror in particular does a few things. The first thing it does is exactly as you say, has a look at your complexion. Just make sure that your wrinkles are okay. Make sure that some of the things on your face are just wrinkles getting older, maybe not some little skin spots that might be growing there. So it gives you some indication that something might be happening. But then, with probably more females than males, but when you're putting your makeup on, you might want to think, gee, what shade should I go for today? I've got a certain coloured shirt and I'm not sure. So you put a bit of makeup on, it's not quite right, so you put a bit more on. With a smart mirror, you don't need to do that. You just say to the smart mirror, try and show me what I would look like with this shade of makeup. And you put your shirt on and you go, oh, it's not quite the right shade. So you tell the smart mirror to try a different shade of makeup. So you can change the look of your makeup before you then say, oh, that's the right shade, I'll go and put that shade on. So again, it's just giving you some information in that virtual world before you go and put it on in the real world. Of course, it's got Alexa built in as well. I don't know if you can say, Alexa, who is the fairest of them all? But maybe you can. I'm not sure. I haven't actually tried that part of it.
Well, the only makeup I've ever used is Max Factor #9 when I read television news. You just slap it on and they put stuff in your hair to stop you flaring because I've got blonde hair.
Right.
It used to come out smelling like a rose after you've read the news and wash your face. Oh, it was greasy, mucky stuff. It was horrible.
So smart mirror, I know when I was talking about this story at home, my youngest daughter who's still at home was all excited about this. She said, well, that looks like my Christmas present taken care of, Dad, a smart mirror so I can check my makeup before I go forward for the world. So, yeah, interesting.
She's delightful. She's a delightful one, that one of yours. Mate, how many people does it take to remove the weeds from 8 hectares of onions?
I'd say about 0. If you're using a robot.
If you-
Normally, a farm would say a day's full labour to remove about 100,000 weeds from an onion crop of 8 hectares is about 30 people working full-time during the day. But there's a new robot that's just come out, and you actually buy this robot, not even at prototype stage, actually at production stage, and it's got 12 cameras that goes on and looks at the weeds, the information underneath the actual robot itself, and then it's got to be cool because it's got 8 lasers. And those 8 lasers go to town on what the cameras find. So as this goes along, only goes about 8 kilometres an hour, so probably not much different to a walking speed.
Yeah.
And then it goes along over the crop, and as it spots different weeds, the lasers just go and hit the actual weeds itself. So I don't know if they make Star Wars type noises when it does it, but it hits the weeds underneath this, and it will clear about 100,000 weeds over an hour, over a continuous period. It will just keep going. It doesn't stop for a lunch break, doesn't have smoko, doesn't say I'd like to be paid more wages. It just keeps going and takes care of your crop.
That's my question. Is the machine itself cheaper than paying 30 people wages all day?
I would say no initially,
Yeah.
but in the long term,
In the long term, probably would be.
yeah, absolutely. So you've got the upfront purchase of it, not a lot of costs in maintaining it and running it, but obviously you know that you can just keep doing it. Now the big issue here is...
Does the laser understand what the difference between a weed and an onion?
Well, and this is the thing, it's got some artificial intelligence on it.
Yeah.
So it continually learns, and if it sees something it doesn't know, it goes out to its database, and then it's connected to the internet, and will go out and search on the internet, uses some AI to say, that is a weed, not an onion, I'll go and hit that, or whatever the crop might be. So that's the real secret there. You don't want to come back and go, oh, whoops, the setting was on the wrong setting, it's just zapped on my onions and all the weeds are growing fantastically.
Yeah.
But there's obviously a lot of work to make sure that part is done right. But the other part that I think is really quite nice in this is that you get it set up, you get it running, you can forget about it, but we've got this real problem at the moment with seasonal workers. No international travel, I'm sure, around the world, seasonal workers that would normally take care of this sort of work isn't being done. So we've heard lots of stories about farmers being in trouble, being able to get their crop stripped, get their weeds taken care of, whatever it might be, because they just don't have those influx of workers. So people are coming up with solutions, and this is one of those solutions.
Is it only for onions only, or would it be done for others as well?
No, the example that was given was
It's
an
onions,
onion
yeah.
crop, just to give an idea of how many people it would take to clear the weeds from an onion crop compared to how many people it might take how much time it would take for this same robot to do it. So it replaces about 30 people, but you can do that with any crop. Obviously it's designed when the crop is just coming out of the ground, not when you've got a full wheat crop, for example, and trying to get this to go along and destroy the crop getting along in between all the furrows there.
It'd be a bit hard. Now, I've got to say good morning to our sponsors, Dubbo Radio Cabs, because you see every radio cab in Dubbo, it's got our sticker on the back of it, because you are going to wreck them with this robo-taxi that you're talking about. What's happening there?
Well, the robo-taxis are getting better. The robo-taxis now...
They're around, yeah.
Yeah, there's 5 different jurisdictions, 3 in China, 2 in California, that are running robo-taxis live right now. They've got a network of about 850 kilometres of roads that they cover, so it's not as if you could jump in a robo-taxi in Dubbo and say, please take me to Sydney. It wouldn't understand enough of the roads to do that. It's obviously designed to go around a smaller area. But the new robo-taxis are coming out, so they're using LiDAR, light imaging detecting and ranging. They're using LiDAR to basically work out the surroundings around them. But in the past, you've seen the robo-taxi, and you know it's a robo-taxi because it looks like a normal car with all this equipment sitting on the roof. The roof isn't like a normal taxi, it just has the word taxi, it's got all this electronic equipment. And the LiDAR that's on there is typically pointing forward and back and then out to the two sides. So it gets this image that it paints around the entire taxi. And that LiDAR's got a range of about 500 metres, but a detailed range of about 250 metres. So you've got a fair vision from that LiDAR. But they're now designing the new cars, and these cars will be out next year, that when you look at the car, and we're on an audio medium here, so you can't see the pictures that we've seen or that I've seen of the cars, but if you looked at the car, you see the car and you went, oh, it's just got a slightly raised roof. It's just got a normal roof and then just a little gap with another roof on top of it, and all the equipment is built into there, so it's all been made much lower profile. You see that robo-taxi, you have no idea there's all this LiDAR equipment built into the roof, but they're actually building the cars from the ground up to be robo-taxis, including to the point where you don't need to have a wasted spot with a steering wheel. You don't need to have all the controls because the robo-taxi is driving itself. So these new version of robo-taxis just have seats in them. You're scared, Richard, you're scared.
Let me just say this. To all you taxi drivers out there, if I had a choice between a robo-cab and a bloke behind the steering wheel, mate, I want someone to talk to and I want someone steering. And so, as far as I'm concerned, yeah, you can have your robo-cab. I'm going to catch something with a person in it.
Well, and there's examples already in public transport.
Yes.
There are buses in Adelaide, for example, but they're a bit easier because they've got a route to go. They've got point A, point B, point C. They know exactly where they're going, and the only focus for a robo-bus in that example is to make sure it doesn't run over people, things that come out on the road. A robo-taxi is a bit cleverer than that because it's got to go from point A and point B that are random. They're not pre-programmed into it, and they don't know the actual roadway to go over on that. So they're a bit cleverer. I say they're being used now. I know what you're saying. It does sound a bit weird, especially if you jump in where the normal driver would sit. If that was the spot you're sitting and there's no steering wheel in front of you and you sit there with your arms folded going, wow, I guess I just sit here and... So it all sounds a bit scary, but the reality is that there'll be some time in the next 10 years, Richard, that you and I will be somewhere in a city and we'll jump in a robo-taxi.
Yeah, I suppose we will.
Yeah.
I don't mind driverless trains, and we've got those in Sydney, of course. They're on rails.
Yeah, that's right.
I like the idea they're on rails. There's some
Pretty hard to
control.
turn off to the left somewhere.
Yeah, they've got control. Always good talking with you, Matthew. Tech Talk. We'll see you next Wednesday morning, and look after the onions.
I will. Thank you.
Matthew Dickinson and Tech Talk. This is DCFM 88.9.